As we roll into the new week, the investing community is primarily tuned in to the CPI and the Fed decision. If you didn't see my analysis of that yesterday in the Sunday evening episode, which we call Monday morning, you can go back and look up that episode. And I give a very detailed analysis using trueinflation.com as part of that analysis. Anyway, you might want to go back and take a look at that entire video because I talk about this entire week that we're heading into financially. I don't do that again on Monday morning's news show. But anyway, Gary Black, which is news, Gary Black has now posted his best guess on Twitter with regard to what's going to happen with the CPI and with regard to the Fed this week. I'll leave that until last. If you hang in there, you'll get to hear what Gary had to say. All right, here's a few bits of amazing news. Oh, before that, though, this is Randy Kirk. I almost forgot that I need to ask you to like, I need to ask you to subscribe, I need to ask you to hit notify. And I know I've been saying this a lot for those of you who watch every day, but there's a bunch of different videos going up this week that do financial analysis of all the various parts and pieces of the Tesla empire. And I take them part by part, one for the cars, one for the semi trucks, one for the robots, et cetera, et cetera. So there's about 5 or 6 or 7 of those. And then I end the week, I think Saturday morning, I'll be giving my grand finale where I'll put all that together and tell you how I see it all the way through the end of 2024, along with the estimated stock pricing for now till the end of 2024. All right. And then, of course, you could join Patreon, which and all the charts, every one of those spreadsheets goes up on Patreon, and you can go up there and play with them and look at them anytime that it's convenient. And right now there's a 7-day free trial. So suggest you join Patreon right now. The information is in the description. All right, let's start out. The very first news item I got here is, of course, I'm a big solar, wind, and battery, and you should be too. I mean, solar, wind, and batteries is the future. I was worried that solar and wind was really not growing nearly as fast as it could. It turns out, well, that had to do with batteries not being in supply and with some constraints with regard to the supply chain on the solar side. Wind had actually been going along pretty well, but now all those constraints are off. Batteries are now in supply, and solar prices have been dropping like crazy. And as a result of that, in the United States, residential solar installations were up 47% in 2023 this far, according to Electric Viking. He did a very nice video on that. If you want to go take a look at that, look up Electric Viking. That's really great news. Good to hear it. We should really be putting a lot more residential solar installations in. Turns out utilities were up even more. Utilities were up 66%. The only laggard right now would be the business sector, manufacturing sector. So hopefully those folks will get on board, because now with mega packs, boy, you can really go crazy saving money in a manufacturing facility or any kind of large commercial facility. As mentioned in a couple of videos recently, some real demand with regard to all of this is going to be coming up, even with government and military installations. Okay, in the same vein, now some companies, the Chinese make most of the solar panels, and the United States has tariffs on those. So there's been a lot of effort by people like Vietnam to import parts of those Chinese panels, make some changes to them, and then reship them to the United States in order to avoid these tariffs. That seems to be working, and/or the complete drop in the price of solar totally seems to have solved the issue of the Chinese tariffs. I'm going to look into that even deeper in the future. In fact, I have a very strong expert coming on this week to talk about as an interview candidate coming this week, be on my show. Probably will be a Friday show where she will give updates with regard to solar, wind, and batteries all over the world. Total expert. I think you'll really like that show. Anyway, but that's where we are on. Oh, I knew there was one more story here. The European Union produced more energy through renewables than through fossil fuels for the very first time in May. All right. That comes from a think tank called Ember. So that's a huge breakthrough. Now, that may not happen every month. It had to do with the demand during May being a little bit off compared to usual, and with the supply being very good for the solar. So anyway, but they're very close apparently to that being a permanent situation, and the solar and wind installations are going into Europe like crazy. Anyway, let's see. What's next here is that Elon was asked on Twitter when he would do that famous coast to coast trip using FSD all the way and not having to have any interruptions. And he said his response was simply soon. Okay. So I thought that was a useful thing to know. Another thing on Tesla news over the weekend has been that the Mexico groundbreaking now appears to be August or September. I thought that was a sad piece of news, but I thought it was important to pass along to you. I'd like to hear more about that. Some people are suggesting that this delay till August or September is really about prep and wanting to hit the ground running, and that this may not delay the opening next year, but I have to believe it's still going to take 9 months. So now we would be talking about June or July next year before we're going to see any product coming out of Mexico. I was hoping for sooner. Maybe they'll get it done in less than 9 months. But that's where we sit right now. Maybe it'll be September of next year. As people have been noting, does it really matter? It's going to get built. We're going to start making cars there. And when we make cars there, it's just going to be one more huge leap forward for Tesla. So I don't know why I worry so much about what month that's going to take place. I've seen a couple of stories now suggesting that VW might be seeing some demand issues as they work off their order backlog. Well, okay, as you know, over the last couple of years, all of the major auto manufacturers have complained about parts shortages, in particular chip shortages. And they've said that's why they couldn't ship as much. Their numbers were down because they couldn't ship. And well, finally, there's enough chips, and finally, there's enough of all the other supplies, apparently. And so the result have been some pretty strong numbers the last couple of months for the legacy automakers, both in ICE and, of course, BEVs are doing quite well. But there's some evidence now that maybe that demand is not going to be enough. Once this backlog is taken up, VW might have trouble having enough orders to continue to produce it at full levels in all of their plants. So something to watch, something to keep an eye on. I took a quick look at the numbers for tomorrow morning, and oil has now gone under $70 again. This is really wild because, as you know, or probably know, OPEC dropped production by 1 million barrels a day. Saudi was going to drop it by 500,000, and they changed that to 1 million. So what's happening where oil is not able to maintain the $70 level, even after taking 2 million barrels a day off the market? This is something that is great for the inflation problem. It's a good news in terms of the transition to sustainable energy, but quite shocking. I'm actually surprised by this. Again, another issue that maybe we should be digging into, taking a closer look at. If you know anything more about this than I do, please make comments below. Next story, Texas has joined 18 other states in assessing additional fees on BEVs. Well, you know, what happens is that BEVs don't get gasoline, right? So as a result of that, they don't pay any taxes when they're getting the gasoline that will go to be used for improving the roads. Well, everybody wants the roads to stay well. We want the infrastructure, the interstate and the local infrastructure. We want all those roads to continue to be in good shape. And with the EVs taking over more and more and more market share of the total number of cars out there, well, revenues are going to go down. And I don't care which kind of car you're driving, you want those roads to be in good shape. So clearly there needs to be a way to raise the money that is being lost because of this. is the right way to do it is to charge. In Texas, they're going to charge $400 at the purchase, and that's an additional charge when you buy the car, and then $200 annually added to the annual registration fee. So is this the right way to do it? I'm not sure. Hit me in the comments below. Let me know. Is there another way to solve that problem? Is this the right way to solve the problem? Is this really a bad idea? I'd really like to have people, give me their impressions on that. Now, on this next story, this has to do with Twitter and with the whole issue of truth and with regard to free speech and everything. But we have this, Ukrainian war taking place, Russia and Ukraine. And one of the things that's taking place, we know it kind of started about a year ago when Tucker Carlson started saying, I'm not positive that these Ukrainians are so great. I'm not sure they're that much better than the Russians. Not sure whether there isn't a lot of graft and corruption going on with regard to the way that funds are being used, funds that the U.S. is supplying. Are they really being used for the war effort? Because we know, or we certainly think that we know that the Ukrainians are a fairly corrupt bunch. And then what's happened is the folks that are supporting the war, including the liberals, which tend to be anti-war, the liberals are tending to be very upset with especially conservatives who are not supporting Ukraine. And so there's a lot of name calling, and then there's some censorship taking place on some of the social media with regard to people that say bad things about the Ukraine or good things about Russia. And most of the time, they're not really good things about Russia. They're just saying maybe there's two sides to the story. So that came up again today on Twitter, and Elon said, he says, look, the truth is always more complex and nuanced than what is reported. This platform, Twitter, now cares about the truth, even if we don't like the truth. I thought that was a really well-stated statement. Do you think so? Isn't this the right direction? Isn't this what we believe in America? I'm just saying, however you feel about Ukraine, however you feel about Russia, however you feel about the war, however you feel about any of the issues that we're facing as a nation, shouldn't we get it all on the table? Isn't it better to let everybody get their side said, not censor it, and then not call names? I mean, what's the point of calling people names? Just have a conversation about the subject matter on the table. Yeah, it doesn't do any good to start calling folks names. Anyway, what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. I'd really like to hear what you have to say. All right, let's finish with this. Gary Black on this week's CPI. So Gary Black is an analyst. He helps people invest their money. He has a fund, and he has other people that he works with them to provide them with the directions and suggestions for how they invest their money. Anyway, Gary Black is well respected on Twitter, maybe one of the most respected folks in the Twitter sphere in terms of his ideas with regard to the markets. Well, Gary said that he says this, what is it that's driving a sharp improvement in market sentiment? Well, not surprising to us, but the NDX is plus 33% and the SPX is plus 12 year to date. He says, why? So number one, the CPI is likely to drop to 4.1 year over year. That's very close to my number. And it's likely to drop, and we're likely to see a 3.5 number in June versus the peak back in June of 22 at 9.1. So he's suggesting we're going to drop to 4.1 this month on a year over year basis, and that next month it'll drop to 3.5. He goes on to say, number two, the Fed will pause interest rates hikes in June and begin cutting interest rates later this year. So again, he's saying if this is true, if they drop to 4.1 in May and 3.5 in June, he believes that there will be no more rate hikes by the Fed and believes that there will be interest cuts coming up later this year. I agree with him like 90% of the way. I don't know if the Fed will start cutting, but if the CPI drops under 2, let's say maybe gets down to 1 or even goes negative, obviously that would be a time to start cutting interest rates. Other than that, I think that he's very close. My numbers are very close, and I wouldn't argue with his numbers because, we're all doing a little of this, right? I am basing my numbers on what I see in the Trueflation.com analysis. And again, if you didn't see the video last night, right now would be a great time. Go take a look at what I said last night in detail about the CPI and the PPI, where things are going and how you can use Trueflation. I don't get paid by Trueflation. I know I promote it all the time. So, but it's not an advertisement. I just think it's smart. I just think it's a very good way to go in terms of being able to make your decisions with regard to where inflation's headed and therefore where interest rates are headed. And that's going to affect the overall market. So you might want to take a quick look. So once again, if you like this kind of content, I'm trying to give you the news on Monday morning before the market opens so that you can make some certain decisions. And then if you could subscribe, if you haven't already subscribed, and hit the notifications if you'd like to hear about those upcoming videos. And then finally, take a look at Patreon. Love to have you be a part of my Patreon group. Quite a few new folks coming on over the last 4 or 5 days, and I thank everybody that has come on recently. In fact, all of you who have been supporting the channel on Patreon. So that's it for today. It's been great talking to you.